1.2 Muscular System PowerPoint. When muscles contract, there are various stages that occur within the body. The three main events are nerve transmission, neuromuscular junction, and the sliding filament theory. Within nerve transmission, there are more stages that occur. Neuromuscular responses relate to the nervous system and the muscular system. So, within the nervous system, there are three types of nerves that will be mentioned frequently today. These are the central nervous system in the CNS, which are in your brain and spinal cord, peripheral nerves in the PNS, which are also in your brain and spinal cord, and lastly we have the autonomic nervous system, the ANS, which contains nerves from your spinal cord to your vital organs such as the heart. To start off the process, we begin with a stimulus from the environment, for example, a football. Your senses recognize the stimuli, in this case your eyes would be your sensory recognition. Sensory neurons, which are the nerves, then carry this information to the central nervous system. For this example, sensory neurons would travel from our eyes via the spine to the brain. Next, motor neurons carry information from our central nervous system to our muscles, specifically our muscle fibers, where the skill is then performed by our body. This would be hitting the ball with our head in a game of football for this example. In a motor neuron, we have dendrites which collect electrical signals. The cell body then recognizes incoming signals from the dendrites and generates an outgoing signal to the axon. Here, the axon then passes the electrical signals to dendrites of another cell or to an effector cell. Action potential is a positive electrical charge inside the nerve and muscle cells. It is sent as a wave down the axon to the motor end plates. Next, we have the neuromuscular junction, which is where a motor neuron communicates with a skeletal muscle fiber through the axon terminal and ACH. The axon terminal is the motor end plate of the neuron, which is an enlarged end that contains vesicles of the neurotransmitter. The ACH is the neurotransmitter that will cross the synaptic cleft. ACH is secreted into the synaptic cleft and it then binds to the receptor on the motor end of the plate of the muscle fiber. If a large amount is secreted and the electrical charge is high enough, muscle action potential is created. Action potential is an electrical impulse down the muscle fiber and neurons stimulate sarcolemma by generating this. The cleft and the motor end palate contain ACHG, which then breaks down ACH once the impulse has passed on. Lastly, we have the sliding filament theory. The process includes calcium ions, myofibrils, sarcomere, actin, myosin, cross bridges, H-zone, Z-line, A-band, I-band, troponin, tropomyosin, ATPase, and ATP. These will all be explained in further detail later on. In order for the muscle cell to contract isotonically, the muscle must receive a contract to do so. Therefore, in order for the instruction to be carried out, a stimulation needs to be provided. Next, the nervous system sends impulses to generate action potential, which, as we said before, it's an electrical impulse which is sent down the muscle fiber. With a sufficient stimulation, the neurotransmitter ACH is released, causing the release of calcium ions. The nervous stimulation of the muscle causes the structures in the muscle to move. Myofibrils are encircled by T-tubules and are the length of the fiber. They are bundles of thick and thin myofilaments. Proteins such as actin molecules are found in thin filaments and myosin molecules are found in thick filaments. Furthermore, they are the contractile proteins that shorten and are responsible for contraction. Sarcomeres are the smallest functional unit of a skeletal muscle fiber that can contract and are performed by repeating myofilament arrangements. The striated appearance of the fiber is produced by the thick and thin arrangements of the myofilament. Also, the overlapping filaments defines lines and bands. As each sarcomere contracts, the length of the myofibril reduces, bunching the muscle. This is possibly due to the H-zone in the sarcomere reducing or disappearing depending on the required force of contraction. The Z-line are thin filaments at each end of the sarcomere. Another protein connects the Z-lines to thick filaments to maintain alignment. An A-band contains thick filaments and the I-band contains thin filaments, including the Z-line. In the presence of high levels of calcium ions, myosin is able to attach to the actin protein filament in the sarcomere. Thin actin filaments are thin twisted proteins which have specific active sites for myosin to bind to. At rest, the active sites are covered by strands of tropomyosin held in position by troponin. On the other hand, thick myosin filaments have a tail and globular head that attaches to actin active sites during contraction. It is larger than actin and forms a cross bridge. Here, energy is provided and is available so that the myosin can pull out at the actin filaments, which shortens the muscle. This energy is provided by the breakdown of ATP by the enzymes ATPase. Contraction requires ATP. Once the brain signals that muscle contraction is no longer needed, the impulses stop, which ceases the release of calcium ions. Consequently, this means that myosin can no longer attach to the actin because there isn't enough calcium. The site where it attaches would be blocked by tropomyosin, and the actin then returns to its resting state, meaning that the H zone in the sarcomere would reappear and the muscle would relax. Our muscles carry out 4 different types of contraction. These are isometric, concentric, eccentric, and isokinetic. Isotonic contractions are the common muscle contractions that enable people to carry out daily activities. There are 2 types, however. The first one is concentric contraction. Here, the muscle shortens as tension in the muscle increases, the muscles shorten as the fibers contract. In sport, for example, when lifting a weight using your right hand, but the biceps brachii muscles concentrically contract and the elbow joint flexes, moving the lower arm. Eccentric contraction is when the muscle lengthens as tension in the muscle increases, for example, when you're lowering a weight. Although the actin and myosin filaments within the muscle contract, the fibers themselves also slide alongside each other, resulting in the overall lengthening of the muscle. Just like the example before, the weight may then be lowered in a steady, controlled way by contracting the biceps brachii muscles of the right arm eccentrically to extend the elbow. Isometric contraction is when the muscle maintains the same length as tension in the muscle increases, for example, holding a weight in a static position for an extended period of time. The force of the contraction occurs in the muscle fiber, but the fibers themselves do not move relative to each other, so the overall muscle length does not change. For example, when holding or gripping an object, there is a downward force in the object due to gravity, which the muscles oppose in order to hold the object in a static position and by maintaining steady contact with the object. The hand and arm are not moving, but the muscles are contracted in order to not release the object or drop it. Isokinetic contraction. In isokinetic muscle, the muscle changes length during a contraction. It contracts maximally throughout its full range of movement, and the defining characteristic of isokinetic muscle contraction is that they result in movements of a constant speed.